Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Pedal Shift Project. The Pedal Shift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments on bicycle travel adventures. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshifted.net/379, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or text me at 202-930-1109 and check Pedal Shift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 379th edition of the Pedal Shift Project. My name's Tim Mooney. Thanks so much for joining. On this edition, this is the Shakedown Ride. This is a big, long tour journal episode where I take my new e-bike on its first shakedown ride to test its capabilities, from battery life to chain tension to, well, does the thing even work? It is a 40-mile round trip from my cabin in West Virginia to a campsite outside of Hancock, Maryland, on the glorious C&amp towpath. We have terrain, we have headwinds, we have hills, and we have a riverside overnight. This episode has it all. Before we jump into it, though, a little bit of housekeeping. It has been a few weeks since Lael Wilcox's ride finished up. She shattered the round the world record. It was awesome. Please check out that pod. It was really fun to follow along, but it's a travel log. It's an adventure. It's a true tour journal. It's amazing. Definitely check that out wherever you get your podcasts. But a big shout out to listener and former guest Cyrus Fairivar for not only meeting up with Lael in California, but he got an unnamed shout out on her pod, which I thought was freaking awesome. So thanks for sharing that, Cyrus. That was great. One more piece of housekeeping. We have a live show coming up, and never let it be said that I didn't give you a lot of heads up and notice. It is Friday, December 6th. Yes, I'm pre-announcing this several months in advance. Friday, say that one more time. Friday, December 6th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Topics are going to be announced. And of course, it'll be the podcast for the following week if you can't make it live, but you should, because it's awesome. And I'm giving you tons of notice, although I know that there are lots of holiday parties around that time. Maybe this is sort of the unofficial Pedal Shift holiday party. Links and more are at pedalshift.net/live. All right, without any further ado, the tour journal for the Shakedown Ride. Good afternoon from my cabin in beautiful Berkeley County, West Virginia. We will be going to Hancock, Maryland. Yeah, just like I said on the last episode, the preview and all of that. I have just taken a picture of the now fully loaded bike, and it's loaded in a weird way. I'm in two rear panniers only because, as I may have mentioned on the preview episode, I don't think I've got any bungees here that I'm not using, actively using. So unfortunately, that means that the rear rack is going to be bearing a lot of weight from and I can't put anything on the front side of the bike. But hey, that's fine. It should work just fine. I am loaded up with a full charge battery and over the wall, as we say. I think that this should be a pretty easy ride. It was raining this morning heavily at times, and now has just absolutely opened up. Beautiful sunny day, about in the low 70s, as I mentioned, was the forecast. It has come to pass. So that is perfectly comfortable weather. Will be pretty chilly in the morning, which means we'll have a pretty chilly overnight. But that's fine. I am prepared for that. I've got all of the accoutrements for that, even though I'm going fairly light when all is said and done. It's just that everything is packed into those panniers. I had mentioned I wasn't going to bring a stove. I'm bringing a stove. I'm bringing coffee. I'm bringing my AeroPress, because I thought in the morning I would really like a nice hot cup of coffee before I get going. So I think that'll be that. The other thing that's different is gas station cuisine. I'm going to eschew tonight. I am going to eat something from my beloved Maria's Taqueria. I usually get one of their mixed pints when I camp, and we happen to be there this morning and early afternoon for lunch, and I just got one of those to go, so I'm all set for that. More food than I will probably need or want, but hey, I've got it, so that's good. And that's about it. I've got Mookie here, who will probably be very sad to be without me for about the next 12 or so hours. I guess it'll be more than that. It'll be closer to 18. But yeah, this is a quick trip, as mentioned before. but I think a good one, and it'll feel good to get camping again. It's a beautiful time of year for it, and it'll be interesting to see if there's anybody in any of these camps. This is the time when actually I would kind of like there not to be anybody in these camps, but we'll just kind of have to see how that goes. So bringing you along tour journal style as always, and we'll just kind of check in from time to time. About 20 miles to Hancock from here, maybe a touch less, and then another couple miles into camp. So not sure exactly how things are going to go. We're just going to kind of wing this, go with the flow. I'm going to be learning along the way and hoping that the battery performs the way that I want it to. I don't see any reason why it won't. But this is a shakedown ride. So cue the song from the Beverly Hills Cop movies. There's a song called Shakedown, and of course it's in my head. Anyways, I'll get demonetized to the extent I'm monetized. I'm gonna stop talking now. All right, more to come. I'm about 20 minutes into the ride, and it's fun. It is very easy. I'm average about 20 miles per hour now. I'm in the hillier part, so I'm not going quite as fast here. Very few cars on the road at this point, which has been good. Yeah, it's kind of enjoyable. Now the question ends up being, hey, how much battery do I want to use on this hilly part? I know there's one coming up here. I'll probably downshift a bit here and then add some battery just so I don't huff and puff as much while I talk to you, because this is one of the steeper ones that I'll have on this route going too. But yeah, it's a delightful day. Feels a little bit like cheating, I'm gonna have to say, having done this before. But I will say this, given I'm still working, that's for sure, and going this way I tend to avoid, because frankly it's a lot of energy to get to the trail going this way. But on an e-bike, holy smokes, it just flattens everything out when all is said and done. I mean, I'm going up a hill at 11-12 miles per hour right now that I normally am crawling up, and I'm on battery 4, or assist 4, which is more than I have been using. But here I am at the top of the hill just having talked to you, and that was easy. So lots more to come as I go downhill and spare you the wind noise. All right, well, this is crazy. I'm more than halfway I am all the way down the hills, though. I don't expect to be able to go any faster than what I just did. But in the uphills, of course, I did some e-assist. Man, this thing just sipped on the battery to this point. So that's pretty crazy. But very easy riding. Bike handles well. I've already got a couple of ideas here. Great audio there, right? I'm like way off the road, and dude is already like gunning it up the hill as if to make a point. Already have one thing that I think I'm going to add, and I expected this. I think I'm going to add some horns at the end of these bar ends just to get another grip, a grip that I am now learning that I kind of prefer, and that is with my thumbs up gripping onto something. So I think that'll be good. I'm feeling a little tingling in my left hand right now. So yeah, I'm not used to a flat grip that isn't the Brompton. That's all right. One other thing, I'm fighting a massive headwind. I should look it up, but the gusts feel like they're upwards of 20 miles per hour. And man, I'm just cutting right through it fully loaded. So another positive to the e-bike kind of situation. Feeling a little dry, so I'm going to take a little bit of a water break here. I am also going to, check the time here. Yeah, I'm early, man. It's wild how fast this has gone. I thought it might take me 2 hours. It may take me an hour. Coming back, I expect it would take me closer to maybe an hour and a half, because it takes me 3 on an acoustic bike. So yeah, all of the talk of just 2xing everything, 2xing your speed, 2xing your distance, all of that seems to be the case here. I mentioned the battery is just getting sips at this point. I've barely dropped 2 volts total. That's another measurement there. And I bet you if I turned the percentage, I may still be on 100%. So plenty of juice to go. I brought the charger, but I think it's incredibly unlikely that I'll use it, because after this ride, I'd like it to be at about 50% so that I can store the battery. That's ideal. Ideal is to keep the battery between 20 and 80 and then percent-wise, and then store it at 50. But I, of course, put it up to 100 because I wanted to see how this was going to go. I'm going to enjoy myself another one of my gin-gins. These are nice little chewy ginger candies. I like them. They're handy when your stomach needs a little settling, and they're also great on a bike adventure like this. So should be, I think I'm on River Road as of now, or imminently. That is a fast road with a minimal shoulder, but I'm also going to go into a higher gear, and I'm going to, I think, go with a higher level pedal assist, because why not? We'll just kind of see how this can go, and maybe try to maintain 20 or more miles per hour on the flats. There's some kind of little rolling hills in there, but nothing really of note from this point on. And then there's a little bit of an incline going up to cross the river, of course. But yeah, the big hills are really going to be more tomorrow. So happy with that. Yeah, really enjoying this so far. Bike with no name, the e-bike, is doing pretty well. So more to come. Pretty sure this is going to be terrible audio, but just wanted to give a sense of how much I am flying on River Road here. It is 20 to 25 miles per hour sustained against a headwind. Pedal assist 5. It is wild how little energy personally I have to put into it when I have this e-assist. And feel way more confident on this road because of the consistent speed, even while being passed. Kind of interesting, but more when I'm not competing with wind sounds here. And just like that, we are in Hancock, Maryland, at the town park. And as my memory served correctly, there is plenty of 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 outlets that are at about chest level. And I forgot to bring an extension cord, but it doesn't matter. My charger has plenty of length to it, that the charger is literally sitting on my rack. I am plugged into the battery, and it is a pretty good setup here. I have, let's see, I want to pull up my menu here. I am now currently at 54.9 volts. I was at 54.5 before I plugged in. So it's obviously, charging at a measurable pace. I have question marks. And maybe some of you who are a little more e-bike centric might have an answer for me. I think after a little bit of work on Perplexity, which is another AI search engine that I use from time to time, I think the answer may be that the battery's meter is just different, but it's very different. If you follow the math, I used about 1/4 of my entire battery to get down here. And that was, I had the lead here. I got here smoking fast. I was probably averaging between 22 and 25 miles per hour the whole way. I was in assist level 5, and I was in my highest gear that I could get into. And so I was just cruising, and that was with a full-on headwind. It was wild. I did record that little bit that you may or may not have just heard. If you didn't hear it, it's because it was too incomprehensible. But if you did hear it, well, I'm telling you what you just heard. So the thing that I'm running into right now is that was amazing. That was great. Going at that speed with that level of assist shows me here 20 miles in that if you have moderate terrain and then you choose to go reasonably fast, and I'll be honest, I'm not that interested in going much faster than that anytime I bike. We always talk about the speed of bike, right? I was cruising past some stuff that I kind of usually like to enjoy a little bit as I'm cycling by. But in any event, yeah, so 25% of battery to get about 20 miles. That's pretty great when all is said and done. And I cruised here. It was just under an hour to get here. I mean, really, I'm kind of stunned, to be honest, how fast and easy it was. So I think the range on this battery is certainly good. Is it as good as I would like? Well, no, but I knew that. I only have a 20 amp hour battery. If we were going with the kind of batteries that Brian has, I think Brian has a 50 amp hour battery, which obviously is more than twice as much. So, but a 52 volts and this amount of battery it's good. It's really good. Okay, so now let's get to the question mark here. And the question mark is, the battery meter was showing 1 out of 4 lights left, which obviously suggests that I only have 25% battery left. Perplexity was suggesting that it was just being conservative, and that may be the case, that some meters are like that to encourage people not to drain it down too much. But if it's really at 75%, as my bicycle voltage meter says, the math isn't mathing for me. So I don't know what's going on with that. I'm going to assume that my battery meter, which is, by the way, now up to 55, and between 55.0 and 55.1 volts, because it's kind of toggling between both. I'm going to assume that one's the correct one. One thing that I was a little concerned about was whether or not I have a 48 volt battery and not a 52 volt battery, and that I have my bike set for 52 volts. And yeah, that could create a discrepancy, but then I looked on my battery and it very much says 52 volts. So, can you tell I'm a bit of a rookie in all of this, a noob as it were, but that's okay, because that's what the Shakedown Ride is all about. If I sound a little stunned, I'm a little stunned. This whole thing was like teleporting here. It really was. And, it feels like, as you might expect, a cross between an acoustic bike and being on a scooter almost. I will say, and I think my discussion with Brian kind of confirmed this, it feels like everything is either 2x or 1/2, meaning you're going about twice the speed or more, honestly. There were portions of that ride where I know I probably would have be going 8 miles per hour maybe, and I was going 21 maybe. So we may be getting close to 3x in some spots. But in any event, we're at least 2xing speed, and I feel about half as spent as I would expect to get here from my place on an acoustic bike. So twice the speed, half the effort. That's really interesting. And so then the only other question mark ends up being is range. And, how fast can this bike recharge? And, already I am, recharging at a pretty fast rate with this quote unquote slow charger. Now, I think it's worth me investigating and taking a look here. Is this a 4 amp? No, this is a 3 amp charger. So you can't call this a fast charger. This is probably, there are a lot of people that would say, really, ideally, you want to slow charge way less than 3 amps. But that's fine. This is the one that came with my battery. I'll go with it. But yeah, this is really interesting. This is really interesting. To be able to go 20 miles and then top off a little bit, taking a break, and then going further, it's just a question of how much range am I going to be getting for short little charges of 3 amps at a time. It's a measurable amount, that's for sure. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how far down I get when I am going to be, I'm assuming, using way more battery going back tomorrow, because it is predominantly uphill as opposed to predominantly downhill. So I think my speed is going to lower. I think it's going to take me a longer time to get there. But, it's wild. It's it's just wild. I think I mentioned this while I was on River Road. Your confidence on, I won't say yours, my confidence on a fast road with minimal shoulder like that goes up because I'm doing higher speeds. Interesting thing that's in your head about all of that. But it's there. It certainly was there. Other takeaways at this point as I'm sitting here, I think that I am pretty pleased with how it rides. I like that it's upright. I'll have to be honest, I wouldn't mind it being even more upright. And so I think I may end up looking into that a little bit more. One thing I will say about that is there's consequences. I will have to completely redo the cabling And maybe that's not a terrible idea anyways, but I'm looking at, let's see, my front brake is, the cable is darn near straight. It's as high as I can get this handlebar with the spacers and everything and have it work. So again, consequences, but that's not terrible. I've got the stuff for it. I bought it specifically. And I think that it might not be a terrible decision to make. So that might be for comfort for longer rides. I do think that the fully upright kind of situation would be good. Also, as I mentioned in the midst of the ride, I definitely would like to improve my grip situation here. And that might be another opportunity to think about a Jones bar or something like that. I need to test some of these things out. I'm finding on a mountain bike with the wider, I'm not used to having my hands out as wide like that. Back in the day, sure, but now I'm not sure I find that as comfortable. So that might be another thing to kind of think about, is like maybe having additional grips inside, but of course that'll take away from my cockpit and some other things. So there's a lot of choices to be made there, but I do think that I would like to dial in comfort a little bit more here for this bike. It did not feel heavy. It did not feel like I was having any wind drag. The tires performed really, really well. The brakes, I'm still getting used to not having rim brakes. Disc brakes to me are interesting because the stopping power on them are different. I don't feel like that there's as much stopping power as I'm used to. And maybe it's because I need to dial these in a little bit more. But it felt like I needed to brake way earlier to have the comfort level. And maybe that's also me just getting used to the new bike. Yeah. So that's kind of a little stream of consciousness here. I don't know if you can hear the wind. It just blew over my sunglasses. But the wind was really, really strong today. And I didn't feel it a bit. So, yeah, this is kind of a game changer. I've talked to people who have used e-bikes. Many of you have written me. Thank you for all of your feedback, your input. No, every single one of you gave me a little bit of information that got me to this point today. And I really appreciated all of the thoughts on your builds and how you've approached doing an e-bike. Speaking of, one of the things that I'm interested in is to get down below here and see, yeah, my spacer is still there. My motor is warm to the touch, but not hot. So that's cool. Yeah. We'll replay that sentence back. And yeah, this is a really fascinating add to the Bicycle Adventure bag of tricks. I can see why people would want to use an e-bike all the time, because, anytime you can be like, oh, my life is easier, I can do that same trip, but just like make it 50% easier. That's not a terrible idea. And you're still biking. I feel like I got a great workout in. But I think it'll be interesting to check the stats, because I did use my Apple Watch. It'll be interesting to see how that was. I also did ride with GPS. I will do it again on the way back. I may or may not be sharing that, just because for privacy reasons, to not show where specifically my place is. You guys know kind of generally, and most of you would be super cool with that, but you never know, right? So I may or may not end up sharing that particular bit with you. But that being said, very, very intrigued with all of this. Now let's talk a little bit about how tonight is going to go. It is currently, as I speak with you, 5:16 p.m. Sun will be going down in about 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'll probably have an additional half hour of sunlight, or light beyond that, depending on where I'm at. I tell you what, I would love to camp here. This is a really nice space, but I also will say, zero disrespect to the folks who are using this space, but there was an incident that I think I talked about last year. There are folks around here that will F with you. This is not far from where I got my coal rolled. There's, I think, folks, there's just kind of evidence that there's stuff that happens here after hours, if you know what I mean. And so it's a shame, because the setup here is fantastic. There's even a shower. There's an outdoor shower here, bathroom and everything, water, little grills. This would be great, but I'm sorry, I just don't trust it. Just given sort of everything. I've kind of been on record on that with this town, which is unfortunate. There are great people that live here, but I think that there's there's some yahoos that are close by that I just don't trust. So I'm not going to stay here. I am going to go to the C&O, and I've got multiple options, so I will take advantage of that. I'm going to let my battery charge up some more, though. I'm not in a rush. I'm going to drink some water. I mentioned I do have my food for tonight. I'm not super hungry. I don't think I want anything to supplement. I've got my coffee for tomorrow. I've got even, what did I get? We went to the bakery in Shepherdstown and got a pecan roll of some type. Pecan apricot roll. Looks amazing. I'm going to have that for breakfast tomorrow, I think. It's enormous. I probably won't even eat all of it. But I don't have any needs at this point, including water. I brought my water and I'm in good shape. I'd forgotten that they have the water here. I didn't even need to cart it all the way down here, but I do have it. So I think I'm in pretty good shape. I think I'm going to maybe download some podcasts or, I don't know, something like that, just in case I don't have a great signal at whatever campground I end up at. Open question now, which campground I should go to. There's one that's about 2 miles away, and I believe there's one that's about 5 or 6 miles away. So I think I'm just going to ride down trail and figure that out. The fact that I'm going to have... I'm at least going to be recharging my battery enough so that I have replaced whatever it'll take to get from here to my campground and back. Probably a little bit more too, especially if I end up staying here for another 40 minutes. Like I said, there was no real reason to charge, but when I got that kind of conflicting information, I think I really wanted to, just to kind of see a real-time follow-up. Let's just press here. Yeah. Oh, okay, I'm an idiot. Now I know that I'm a giant idiot. Let me tell you why I'm an idiot. When I was pressing the button, I was only seeing one light. The reason why I was only seeing one light was because it was the red light. The green lights were not visible from the angle that I was looking at. There are 3 green lights and 1 red light. At this point, when you reveal yourself to be a dummy, and yes, this will absolutely make the podcast. Okay, well now we know that the battery meter does in fact reflect reality, and I think we're good on that. All right, that changes everything. I may end up taking off in a little bit just to go to the campground. From C&O Bicycle, a very close C&O Bicycle, as expected. Just had a really lovely conversation with a local guy named Mike. You know, I always am a little nervous when I have chats with local folks because, you know, sometimes we don't necessarily see eye to eye on a whole bunch of things. But it was a good conversation, a good lesson that, you know, you listen more than you talk. that you can have a good conversation. And, we talked for probably about 45 minutes or so until I was about ready to go to camp. So yeah, it was good. More insight into kind of locals and all that other kind of stuff. It was interesting to talk about political things, but not politics, if that makes sense. So that was pretty cool. Got a good charge on the bike too. I would say I probably made back a good half of that quarter, if that makes sense, in the recharge. So I certainly will have more than enough that I'll need on the way back. I'm not going to worry about conserving energy or anything like that, and it'll be an interesting test of things going up. I assume that I will burn twice the rate. So I assume it's going to take out about 50% of my charge to ride up there tomorrow. So we'll see. And my intent then, of course, will be to leave the battery at about 50% charge, as I mentioned before. But I'm really excited to get to camp. I'm starting to feel even the slightest bit hungry, so that'll be good. I do have food. Decided to not do the adult beverage tonight, just not feeling it. That's fine. Yeah. So off we go. This has so far been a really great shakedown. I'm glad I got here quickly. It just opened up options. I'm glad I've got the ability to charge. It's interesting, as I'm sitting out here, there seems to be a plug out front here at the bike shop. So it seems like that's another option for charging, assuming that they would be cool with that. I'm seeing another spot. There's a lot of charging places. I'm seeing 110 outlet over by a picnic table over by here too. So now I'm going to start paying attention to those kinds of things, because Hancock is probably a good place to be at for a C&O ride and be able to top off a battery. So lots of things going through my head about this kind of stuff. So more to come. We'll check in when we're back at camp. From White Rock Hiker Biker Campground on the C&O towpath, I am Alone, for your preview for your statistics section, number of cyclists in camp, 0. But that's not surprising. But, well, maybe it is. It's a beautiful weekend. Saturday night, not a Sunday night. So, but the C&O is a lot more spread out than people think, maybe. I don't know, compared to the freaking Oregon coast. I will tell you why it's a little surprising to me. I was in Shepherdstown today, but last week also. Last week, there were a full dozen or more definite trail camping cyclists in town. So I was given the impression, now of course that was Labor Day weekend, so there may have been more people cycling that weekend, but it seemed like such a juxtaposition to the experiences on the Oregon coast this year that are documented on the last tour journal. So, I don't know. I will say I am happier on the C&O when I've got a campsite to myself. But also, interestingly, nobody has ridden by here. But I will hasten to add, I am on the section of the C&O that is parallel to the Western Maryland Rail Trail, which, frankly, everyone uses. It is interesting how much that has become the bypass for this section of the C&O. Of course, it's fine. I mean, the Western Maryland Rail Trail is great. It feels great when you're having ridden on the C&O for a while. It feels good to be on pavement for a little bit. So I totally understand why people use it, and locals too. So I think that this is a quiet section of the trail, considering it's about 2 miles or so, give or take, from Hancock itself. So I am in the tent because it is also buggy. I just got dive bombed by mosquitoes the second I got here, and they are not my favorites, and I don't think anybody loves mosquitoes, but yeah, I was particularly uninterested in eating at the picnic table. I was able to lock the bike to the bottom of the picnic table, and I'm not a huge person to lock in remote campsites like this, but we're not that remote, and also this bike's probably my most expensive bike, well, minus the Brompton, I suppose, but with all of the add-ons and stuff, which I haven't talked about the cost on this bike, I will do that in the takeaway episode. I think it's worth putting a lock on it whenever it is stable, and I'm not going to be right on top of it. There's lots of stories of people having their e-bikes or their batteries stolen. My battery does lock to the bike, which would make it much more difficult to remove. Certainly could be removed. It's basically only held on through the platter. Is that the right word? The rack that is on, and it's only held down on the 2 water bottle posts. So I'm sure a good crowbar could just yank it right out, but it would take some doing. I've got it strapped down as well for additional stability. So yeah, anybody who would be coming to try to stealthily take this bike will find themselves very surprised, because it is the lock is in the rear triangle, but on the lower bar of it, sort of along the chainstay. So it's not very obvious. So I think I would hear someone trying to do something. But anyways, I am happily ensconced in my tent, and the mosquitoes primarily, are all trying to get at me from outside the screen here, and I laugh at them. Ha ha. Ha ha. Enjoying my Maria's Taqueria mixed pint, except I made a really, really bad mistake. I thought I had those little packets with forks and spoons and stuff. I was like, oh, I've got one of those in my bag. Cool. I didn't look closely at it. It's a coffee condiment setup, which is great if I wanted creamer, which I do not. But the only thing I have in there are 2 flimsy stirrers that are not good enough to even be chopsticks, and I'm not sure if they're really serving that role very well, but I have no utensils whatsoever because I packed this really quickly and not in my conventional way. Normally I have a spork in with some of my stove stuff, but I must have used that and either lost it or put it in a different spot. So word to the wise, keep your systems, be organized, blah, blah, blah. Also, amusingly, I rejected at Maria's utensils because I could have gotten a plastic fork, but I was like, nah, thinking I'm already packed up and I've got my spork and it's just going to go in my pannier. There you go then. Tim is stupid part 2, right? All right, I'm enjoying this dinner. I've got my back jack, and I'm on my pad that I'm very happy with. It is starting to cool down. I'm loving that. I am looking forward to a nice chilly night, if not cold. I think I can handle cold. I'm ready for my coffee tomorrow, an AeroPress coffee no less, because I decided to bring the AeroPress. I am using the pellet version of the stove that I know takes forever to boil water. I know I don't need to boil it for coffee purposes, but I do want to get it going. So I know it's going to take me a while in the morning to get hot water. So I will just have to be patient waiting for my coffee. There's a part of me that wants to, I do have a decaf packet. I'm thinking, I wonder if I should make some decaf coffee tonight to set my expectations for the morning for how long it'll take. We'll see. I mean, I'm like literally 2 miles from Hancock, and I'll to get back to the bridge across the Potomac to get me back to West Virginia, I have to go buy sheets. So, at the end of the day, I may in the morning go, screw it, I'll just get coffee there. So we'll have to see. But it's things are good. Things are really good. I feel like that the first half of the shakedown, I'm super excited about, and thinking about all the possibilities with a bike. But of course, I do want to be in the moment, do want to be present, as we've talked about in past episodes, and just enjoy the here and now and my terrible chopsticks and the challenge of eating this. I am eating it more slowly as a result, so that's good, I suppose. But just enjoying as the sun and the light sort of slowly dims down. You may be able to hear some of the wildlife, the frogs, the crickets. Heard some pileated woodpeckers a little bit ago. They're starting to come back. So the wildlife here on the C&O is an old friend, and it's nice to be back on the trail again. It's been too long. It's been all summer long, and there used to be that I would go out in the summers, and now I'm not so hot on doing hot rides anymore. So who knows? Maybe with the e-bike I might change my tune a little bit. We'll have to see. All right, more to come. I'll probably check in at least one more time before bed. Sun is just about set. I've got one of my tablet stove things going. Is that the way to put it? I have ignited one of my tablets, and my stove is currently going. And just to see how long it'll take to heat up the minimal amount of water for a quick little decaf coffee. That will be helpful for figuring out how it will be tomorrow morning. Obviously, I tend to boil a ton of water at once, and don't end up needing it. So I pre-measured how much I would want for my cup of coffee and then threw it in. So I think that will be a good method for tomorrow morning as well. Because like I said, these are great. I'm stunned. Honestly, these tablets may be 6-8 years old. And I was like, I'll bet you this won't work. They're all sealed, of course. But I lit it and it went right away. And it's fine. I do know that when I was doing a full pot, that I would have to use 2 of them to get enough heat for the full pot. But for this minimal amount of water, I think one will be more than enough, and maybe more than I need, but that's fine. I've got several of them. I got away from this type of stove because it just wasn't very efficient. And, as a result, I went to other ones. Oh, it sounds like it's already maybe even boiling. Nope, not quite, but it's getting there. But now I'm reminding myself that this is actually fuel that you can, well, at least I have flown with. I don't know if if you're supposed to, but I have. They don't obviously show up as being flammable. I guess they really are. But in any event, that might be something for another potential trip. But of course, as I look at my battery, my e-bike, that is obviously not something I can fly with. So it's not going to save me anything on an e-bike trip, which cannot be flown unless I come up with other options. Oh, I see my water is boiling. So I will bid you a fond good night as I enjoy my coffee and you enjoy whatever you're doing. Next couple of seconds from now, it'll be tomorrow morning, and I'll probably be making a caffeinated beverage. Good morning. A very early pre-dawn here at White Rock Camp. Cold, definitely, and I am starting up my stove right now. A little bit of a wind, a little bit of breeze. Gonna see if I can block that. There we go. Get that hot water going. Not a great night of sleep. The train tracks are immediately across from the river here, and they were running pretty much all night long. There were some car changes and lots of stuff going on. The temperature didn't get me at all, and as the sun is coming out, I assume it's going to warm up a little bit. In fact, I can probably turn off my headlamp right now. You can tell I haven't had my coffee yet. The biggest thing that I've got going on right now was just lack of sleep. I probably cobbled together a few hours, but at this point I was just sort of like, I probably could have slept a little bit, but with the sun coming up, I'd rather get a coffee in me and maybe eat a little breakfast and, might as well just get going and get back home at a very decent hour. The other thing that I'm running into, and this is relevant to the show, is I am running low on phone battery. But Tim, you bring batteries all the time. I do. The problem is that I brought a whole bunch of different cables, but didn't really check. I have the wrong cables. I have USB-C to USB-C, and the only batteries I have, including my bike, which, my bike controller at the top has a USB, and I assumed it was USB-C. No, it is USB-A, as is my battery, and I don't have a way to charge my freaking phone. So I'm going to have to conserve things on the way up. So as a result, I am unlikely to use Ride with GPS on the way back, just because obviously I don't want to lose out on the ability to record. And, if something went sideways, obviously I want to be able to make a call. So we will be sipping on our energy on the phone. And it's kind of ridiculous considering I have way more battery. I have so much battery power, but just no way to get it into my phone, which is weird. I could, as I think of it, I could probably buy something at the Sheetz, the gas station. So I might consider doing that. Maybe. We'll see. In any event, I feel a little dumb. I always have adapters and stuff too. It's just, it was not great. Oh, the other thing I didn't do, and this contributed to my lack of sleep, I usually bring some antacid pills just to be on the safe side, like not just the chewable kind. And I didn't have any, and I could have used some last night, and that was a problem. And the other thing was I only brought one earplug, not two. So things conspired against actual sleep last night. That was unfortunate. And part of it was I sort of rushed the pack job, and it's like, save that for the takeaways episode, right? But it's fine. I'm not like exhausted or anything. And Lord knows I'll be able to punch up that battery and get the extra assist as needed. But actually, I think that the bike back today will be good. It'll feel good. I feel, it'll be nice. All right, I'm going to stop rambling because I clearly need some caffeine, and I need to set it up because I've got the AeroPress. So, more to come. It is about 7:30 a.m. The sun is fully out. Probably been up for about an hour, give or take, just based on its position in the sky. I'm fully packed up. I ate a rugula that I got at the bakery yesterday for breakfast. And as many of you know, my relationship with sugar is limited. I try not to eat it. I'll eat it when I'm riding. But I have to be honest, I'm not feeling great right now. I think it was just a little too much on an empty stomach. So I'm hoping that things will even out a little bit over time here. That and black coffee. It's like one of the worst things that I can put in my system on a purely empty stomach. But amusingly, I do the black coffee every day. So who knows? Maybe it was the one thing too many. Basically, all I have left to do is unlock the bike and figure out where I'm going to put the lock, because I just realized I sealed up my bag. So unseal one of them. And then I'll just clip in, and when I say clip in, clip the Ortliebs to the rack and get out of here. I don't think I'm going to go any place other than just straight to the bridge and get myself out of here. I just don't feel the need for anything. I've got a full water. I mean, the odds of me needing more than that are close to zero. I've got gins still in case I needed a little boost, more sugar, right? But I think I'm interested in how this is going to go, because I mean, it is there's some hills of note here, and it's a lot of up compared to a lot of down. So it shall be interesting to see how this feels. My best prediction here is I'm just going to turn this frickin' battery on, or turn the higher pedal assist, and I think it's going to be, not challenging, but it's going to be, should I say easy? No, maybe not easy, but it will be flattened out for me. And so that's going to be really interesting. I'm wearing all of my layers at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if I end up tossing some of those layers during one of my breaks when I check in with you, because you know me, I run a little hot. Okay, time to unlock, pack up, and get out of here. From River Road, I just recorded an entire portion for you, but I did it on my AirPods Pro, and they sound terrible. It's interesting. They're great for so many things, but for proper audiophile quality, not good enough for you. So I'll re-record this, but I'll do it a little bit shorter shrift, I think, because I was rambling. Trains have been going by, hauling coal from elsewhere in the state. I've been moving great, probably about 25 miles per hour on average. Been on pedal assist 4 and 5 for the most part. Now the climbs begin, so it'll be interesting to see what pedal assist I end up being in. I am not feeling like working real hard, so I also don't need to conserve my battery. I'm at about 93% battery right now, so I'm in really good shape. That recharge yesterday, an hour recharge, got me, according to this, up to 100%. I'm not sure if that was the real case. I think that the calibration on this bike meter, for percentage at least, is not quite right, but we'll learn more as we go. But I certainly did replace a lot of the juice that I used yesterday, so I don't think I have any range anxiety. So I may just liberally use the battery and test out conservation methods at some other point. Bike is riding great. Tires are great. Everything has been great. And hauling ass at 25 miles per hour on River Road with nobody on it was really nice. I only got passed, I think, once the entire time. And I think there's only been a couple of oncoming cars. I am going into the sun, which will change in a moment here as I move away from the river and go up the valley. That's good. I think that's just blinding for drivers, and it's just not super safe. Now, of course, I'm a big target on the road. I'm wearing this big yellow hoodie, so that helps. So I'm hoping that everything will be just fine. I will be going, I think, back into the sun again on my Highway 9 jaunts, but that's for a very short period of time, so I'm not too concerned about that. And there's a reasonable shoulder, except for like one small part, but I'll be going so fast at that point, I'm not too concerned. And it's a straightaway, so. All right, I think it's time for a sip of water, and then up the hills with a little bit of an assist. Should be easier than last time, that's for sure. Phone battery down to 25%. I need to make sure I bring the proper cables next time. All right, more to come. At the turnoff of Highway 9, boy, I went fast. I certainly stayed in a higher pedal assist the whole time, unlike the way down, where I was often in 1 and 2. I stayed in 4 and 5 most of the way up, and boy, you just cruise up these hills. There's a little bit of up and down as you kind of rise out of the valley, fall back in the valley, and then come back up. And it was literally a nothing burger to get up here, which was great. And I have some steep but very short hills coming up, a couple of which usually defeat me on the acoustic bike, and I do not anticipate having an issue with this one. It'll be interesting how fast I can go up it, or how hard. I'm going to take it easy. One thing that I don't have, and I've been shifting without the device that turns the motor off, so I know I'm going hard on the chain, and I want to be careful about that. You can go through chains real quickly just because you're putting more torque on your chain, if that's the right term. You're pulling on it more. So this is something I do want to be careful of. I do think I will, in the future, and we'll talk about this on the next episode, consider carrying additional chains, because I think that's just smart when you've got an e-bike. It's easy insurance, considering it strikes me that's one of the things that will go faster than on an acoustic bike. So, okay, I'm nearly home. By the way, it is, I may be home in an hour and a half total, because it is 8:46 and I don't anticipate it taking much more than 15 or 20 minutes to get back from here, which is pretty wild. A little more than an hour down and about an hour and a half back, although I went a little bit heavier on the battery assist on this one. So, all right, next stop, you'll probably hear from me back at the cabin. And those barks probably tell you where I am right now. Made it back, no problem. Battery at 65%. So I was aggressive in my estimation with using the pedal assist. I could I have done more? I suppose, but I didn't limit myself in any way for what I wanted to do, and that included going up hills with levels. No, I never did more than level 5. So that seems to be my kind of burly amount, and that's really interesting. That also suggests that having a 750 watt motor is not terribly necessary. I'm only using up to, well, what's half a 750? That's because that's level 5 essentially. It's at 50% of that. So that's interesting for those of you who are considering a 500 watt versus a 750. I will say, I'm sure there's going to come a point in time when I would really want that power. But I went up some very, very steep hills that defeat me all the time. And level 5 was what I used. Now, they were very short. Now, if I get into some real deal mountain passes and stuff like that, maybe I would use more with it. So, but yeah, I'm impressed with the range on this. I'm impressed with the power. I'm impressed with a whole bunch of things. This has at least met, if not exceeded, expectations. And now, next episode for you, today for me as I think about it, and for the next several days until I record, what is in the realm of possible here? What would I like to do with this? There's a whole bunch of interesting things that can happen. I'm interested also in thinking about this, using it in a conservation mode where I focus in on the watt hours that I'm using, or the watts that I'm using at any given time, trying to limit the amount and conserve. So could I do full days on the C&O as long as I had a place to charge overnight? I think that the answer to that is an unqualified yes. If all I want to do is 60 or 70 miles in a day, there's no question I can do it on this battery. It feels like that it's got the range for that, particularly if I'll say conserve the power. If I don't, I've certainly got a massive amount of opportunity here in West Virginia. To be able to go 20 miles on a bike gets me to Hancock. It gets me to the Martinsburg train station, and this is a bike that can go on the trains that are available there, including the regional rail. So there's some really interesting use cases for this bike, whereas before I didn't have an option, or a good option, unless I drove all the way out here. So very, very interesting things that are opening up for this bike, and we'll talk much more about them in the takeaways episode, in addition to all of the other takeaways that I have for this. But how do I feel right now? I just did 20 miles up and out of the valley. You remember how wiped I was in the spring. Now I'm in a little bit better shape, carrying a little bit less weight, I think, compared to then. But I feel fresh as a daisy right now. I certainly had help, but it's a really interesting thing what this opens up. So much more to come in the next episode while we contemplate all of those things. And Mookie's happy I'm home. Statistics. Miles biked, about 40. Average speed on flats, 23 miles per hour. It smoked. Battery confidence, 100%. Efficacy of using coffee stirrers as chopsticks. I'm going to go with 3%. I was able to eat, but barely. Flats, 0. And as always, we like to close out the show with a special shout out to the Pedal Shift Society. Because of support from listeners like you, Pedal Shift is a weekly bicycle touring podcast with a global community. Expanding into live shows and covering new tours. If you like what you hear, you can support the show for $5, $2, or even $1 a month. And there's one-shot and annual options if you're not into the small monthly thing. Check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lean, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Didis, Thomas Skadow, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Harry Telgadis, Chris Barron, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Mr. T, Nathan Poulton, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Greg Braithwaite, Sandy Pizzio, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Joseph Quinn,
Drew Porter, Byron Patterson, Joachim Robber, Ray Jackson, Jeff Fry, Kenny Mikey, Lisa Hart, John Denkler, Steve Hankel, Miguel Quinones, Alejandro Aviles Reyes, Keith Spangler, Greg Towner, Jody Zaranin, Lucas Barwick, Michael Baker, Brian Bechtal, Reinhard Bigel, Greg Middlemiss, Connie Moore, William Gothman, Brian Benton, Joan Churchill, Mike Bender, Rick Weinberg, Billy Crafton, Gary Matushak, Greg Latoile Lopez, James Sloan, Jonathan Dillard, John Funk, Ronald Paroli, Dave Roll, Brian Hafner, Misha LeBlanc, Ari Messenger, David Grotke, Todd Grossbeck, Wally Estrella, Sue Reinert, John Lico, Stephen Granada, Philip Mueller, Robert Lackey, Dominic Carroll, Jackie McCullen, John Hickman, Carl Presseau, David Neves, Patty Louise, Terry Fitzgerald, Peter Steinmetz, Timothy Fitzpatrick, Michael Azuski, Hank O'Donnell, David Zanoni, David Weil, Matthew Sponsella, Chad Reno, Spartan Dale, Carolyn Ferguson, Peggy Littlefield, Lauren Allensmith, Eric Burns, Thomas Pearl, Darren McKibben, Richard Stewart, Dave Fletcher, Jack Smith, Luke Parkinson, Ryan Patterson, Cyrus Fairivar, John Gardner, Sam Scruggs, Dwight Pintinger, Connie Bowder, Rob Merrifield, and thanks to all past and anonymous folks for helping make this show happen.
Thank you for joining. You can find Pedal Shift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedal Shift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.